Whispers Beneath Cold Earth. Part 3. Beneath the hollow sky, the hollow was no longer part of New England. The moment Isaiah Bell crossed the cemetery's boundary, reality thinned like breath on glass. The trees bowed inward, frozen mid-reach as though in worship. Snow swirled in unnatural spirals above the headstones, each flake glowing faintly, like ashes caught in moonlight. The sky had changed no longer gray, but an endless violet canopy, pulsing slowly, as if the heavens themselves remembered too much. He carried no lantern. The hollow lit itself now. Where the cottage once stood, only a scorched outline remained, and in the center lay Silas's body silent, frozen in prayer. Isaiah did not weep. There was no grief left in him, only understanding. He now knew what the hollow required. Misery had chosen him not as victim, but as vessel. He stood before the black stone once more. The spiral etched into its face spun gently when he blinked. Beneath the grave, Misery waited. He whispered her name for the first time, and the earth opened like a sigh. The chamber beneath had grown. No longer a mere tomb, it had become a cathedral vaulted and vast, carved from bone and stone, lit by fireless lanterns that swayed though there was no wind. Along the walls, inscriptions pulsed with symbols Isaiah could now read without learning. They were names. All names. Generations of the forgotten, the buried, the unmourned. Dunstable Hollow had once been a town like any other, until it became the wound Misery refused to let time scab over. She stood in the center of it all, arms outstretched, robes woven from shadow, hair like ink poured over frost. "You've come to remember," she said, and her voice trembled through the marrow of the place. Isaiah knelt before her, not in obedience, but in echo. "I am ready," he said. Misery stepped forward, and where her foot fell, flowers bloomed, tiny white lily that withered the moment they opened. She placed her hand over Isaiah's chest. "You were born of forgetting," she whispered, "but you are not unworthy. You will carry what others bury." And then she showed him. His mind split. He saw the night the hollow was sealed, villagers dragging Misery through the woods, her mouth stitched with silver wire, her eyes covered in leeches. They buried her alive at the crossroads. Beneath the stone no one dared to mark. But Misery did not die, she dreamed. And in her dreaming, she remembered all the others, the unmarked children, the disappeared mothers, the vanished soldiers, the sinners and saints buried under false names or none at all. The hollow became her mind's archive. She remembered so the world wouldn't, but memory was hunger, and hunger grew. Isaiah saw himself as he was and as he had been, an orphan, yes, but not from plague. He had been taken from this place as an infant, the last born of the hollow, carried away by Silas, the gravedigger turned guardian, to keep the bloodline from returning to the stone. But blood has a way of remembering. Isaiah screamed, not from pain, but from realization. When he awoke, he stood inside the cemetery again, but it had changed. The graves now bore names once lost. Every marker etched in runes only he could read. The sky remained violet, the sun unmoving. Time had curled in on itself. In the center of the ground stood a great obelisk formed from bone and slate, crowned with the crescent spiral. Isaiah lived in the hollow now. Not in the cottage, but in the earth itself. He was not a boy, not a man. He was the Wakekeeper. Each night, he walked between stones and whispered the names aloud so they would not be forgotten. Each dawn he knelt before Misery and offered her what he had gathered scraps of dreams, echoes of grief, the soul-tattered remnants of memory. And she, in turn, gave him silence, not peace, but stillness. In time, others came, travelers who strayed too far from their paths, children who vanished from orphanages, women who followed faint lullabies into the snow. Misery welcomed them all. Isaiah carved their names into stone. He buried them gently, and sometimes they woke only to dream again beneath the hollow sky. Centuries passed without notice. History moved on. The world forgot Dunstable Hollow. Maps erased it. Roads twisted away. But the cemetery remained. If you listened at the right time, between midnight and the wolf has breath, you might still hear Isaiah's voice, soft as soil, naming the forgotten, reminding the stars who had lived, who had died, and who had dared remember. And above it all, misery dreamed, not in grief, but in reverence. The end.